Welcome to today's yoga practice. I will be doing a dynamic prenatal yoga flow for first trimester. My name is Ashley. I'm a yoga teacher and I help yoga teachers with sequencing, business strategies, and all sorts of stuff. And I've got to be honest, I am not a prenatal yoga teacher. So that means this is my own practice that I'll be doing for my own reference because I am pregnant with my second child. And I am just past the first trimester, but this is going to be a first trimester practice. And the reason I'm doing this is because I got these amazing cards in the mail. This is a yoga deck of cards, and it comes with different sequences. Cards look like this. There's a bunch of poses, a bunch of modifications and information, and then there are a bunch of sequences. So this sequence I laid out on the ground from the cards, the dynamic flow for first trimester. So I'm going to do this practice and talk through it. If you are following along with me, please consult your doctor or your midwife first to make sure that these movements are appropriate for you, okay? So as I talk about the dynamic flow we're going to be doing, you'll see the sequence laid out on the floor. First trimester dynamic flow. This sequence will gently warm up your body with a good amount of movement to release tension as well as energize and activate your body from head to toe. The standing poses will help you to strengthen and open, especially your hips. Try to connect your movement with your breath throughout the flow. Inhale while lengthening and exhale while deepening. Never hold your breath. This is a wonderful time to bring more awareness to your movement and thoughts. As you flow through the sequence, be mindful of the new life that's developing inside of you. Think this as your first practice together. Welcome all the new sensations and observe them without judgment. Become a witness to this miracle. If you're a beginner, try not to rush. Really take your time with each pose, slowly and consciously entering, exiting, and changing positions. Focus specifically on drawing your tailbone in for healthy rotation of your hips. If you're intermediate, and that would be someone like myself probably, start to bring more awareness to your regular practice. Pull back a little bit. Go up to 70 to 80% of your normal full capacity. Take the challenge of practicing slower, especially if you are used to vinyasa flow or power yoga classes. Okay, one more note that if you are feeling dizzy at any time, dizzy, nauseous, too hot, stop your practice. Do not pass go, do not collect $200. So if you have a history of miscarriages, there's also reference in this setup here. There's a booklet and a whole bunch of information. So if these cards are of interest to you, go click on the link in my description and get them, and make sure to use the code ASHES YOGA, ASHES YOGA, at the checkout for 10% off, okay? Okay, let's do this dynamic flow. And I'm going to make it pretty short. I'm trying not to make this a huge long practice, but just a short one. So we start an easy pose. If you have props, bolsters, blankets, blocks, that kind of thing, I would say grab them. I'm actually going to go grab them right now. I've got a couple blocks, a bolster, and you may not have a bolster, that's okay. I'm just going to set that up in case. You don't need them, but they're helpful, especially blocks, especially if you have tightness, if you're not used to some of these deeper poses. Okay, we're going to start an easy pose. That's a simple seated position. And if you want to sit on something, that's great. But easy pose is just a cross-legged position, great for all trimesters of pregnancy. And we simply sit, breathe, and observe, preparing our mind and our body for what is to come, this dynamic yoga flow. It's a time to check in, to take in, and to listen. Start to connect with yourself, with the new life growing inside of you. And we make sure our breath is flowing throughout this practice, never holding the breath. So in and out through the nose, breathing to expand the belly and rib cage, and slow exhales out. Then to get moving, we start with neck rolls. You can take the chin to your chest, rock your head side to side. Now this can be done slow, and if it's comfortable, you can take your head and tilt back as well. Sometimes with neck issues, not so good. But feel in any spots where you might want to hold. Open the throat. Release tension in the shoulders and the neck, get longer. So neck rolls, they're not fast. Just going side to side. And then lift the head back up to center, heading into some side bends to lengthen the sides of our body. It might not feel so good to twist even right now, a whole lot, so we're gonna lengthen in ways that we can. Take those hands up, inhale. One hand down on the ground, other hand across the body. Look up past the front of the arm. Let's go side to side. Inhale, reach up. Exhale, side bend. Hand down. Other hand across. Reach a little longer, look up. Let's do one more each side. And if you're doing this practice at home or taking this sequence, you can definitely add more time or less time. You can hold longer or you can hold less. So that's the great thing about these types of sequences, is that it can be 90 minutes or it can be quick 15 minutes. Okay, take the hands out and down, and then start to roll forward onto your hands and knees. We're heading into hip circles on the hands and knees. What are hip circles? Well, it's just some movement to loosen up the hips and get ready and prepare. So we're actually more in like a modified plank pose. You can come up here, roll the hips to the side, right or left, and then sit back and make a circle like you're trying to draw a circle around your knees with your hip bones. Okay, this actually does feel really good. So not quite to full child's pose, but you're getting back there. Okay, and then switch directions. Again, slower is good. Be very mindful of each movement. If something doesn't feel good, don't do it. Then bring it back to more of a neutral position. So a modified plank pose. Planks are great for core strengthening during pregnancy. Okay, take the toes, tuck them under, lift the knees, and start to send the hips up and back to downward facing dog. Now there's a few ways to adjust or modify. You can take the feet wider, bend the knees a little bit more. Kind of pedal the feet into this down dog. We're actually not going to do down dog a whole lot today, but it's a good check-in pose. And then let's try this. Take one foot to the middle of the mat, lift the other foot into the air, bend the knee, not too much strain, not too much lift. Open the knee, open the hip, and rotate through the ankle a few times. See this ankle? Yeah, it's moving. I'm going straight from the sequence card, so I'm not adding additional movements in here, but there are places where you could add more. Take that foot down, try the other side. Lift the leg, bend the knee, open up the hip. For example, you could add hip circles. Ow! Careful with or like I did add ankle rotation, but I just like to do that as my knee lifts. You can add hip circles in this pose as well. Okay, take that foot back down. Knees to the ground. We're heading to modified sun salutation. Instead of coming up to standing, we start in child's pose. Sit back. Shift your weight forward into modified plank pose. Keep shifting. Bend the elbows into that kneeling chaturanga. Then to up dog, which should still be okay in first trimester. If not, place a bolster underneath your hips or a block, or we can come right to modified plank pose on the knees. I'll show you that version. And then lift the hips up and back to child's pose. Another way to do this, especially as we start to get more uncomfortable, come forward in from child's pose on kneeling, bend the elbows lower. Then instead of back bend or heart opener, lift back to plank and back to child's pose. We can do that a few times. In a prenatal class I took years ago, we would always do 3 mama push-ups. So it would be 3 tricep push-ups. But here you can choose a tricep push-up or head to up dog on the knees, modified. Lift through your core, draw the belly in, and back to child's pose. One more time, why not? Round the back as you come forward. Bend the elbows lower. Up dog or plank. And back to child's pose. Now we've been on our hands quite a bit, which I'm noticing. So let's go ahead and roll up for a second. I am adding this from the sequence. Just give yourself a little wrist stretch. Sometimes that can feel nice if you ever feel like, oh, that was a lot on the hands. Again, with a video like this, you can push pause. Take a moment, stretch out the wrists, then come back into it. So let's crawl the hands forward from hands and knees. Next up is a little core strengthener. Step the feet back into plank pose. So now the knees are lifted. Roll onto the blade edge and inside edge of one of your feet, pick a side, and then one hand is under the shoulder. There we go. Lift up, one hand side plank. Let me share with you another way to do this. Top leg, kickstand. Right there. There's another version. Another variation of this, bottom knee, down. Now that's going to be a much more accessible version. If you've practiced and you're used to poses like this, we can extend and even intensify to your level, knowing your body. Leg lift, kickstand, stacked feet. Now let's bring it to the other side. Lift high with the hand, bring the hand down, go through plank. Other side, reach up. If you're following along, we're just gonna work through the poses with a few breaths, staying and feeling something. Lift through the side ribs, create space there. Again, you've got kickstand options or kneeling. This is a great core strengthener since we don't want to do a lot of boat pose or crunches. We do planks, lifting and pressing the ground away for that core strength. Take the hand back to the ground, feet down, sit back, take child's pose for a second. Heading into our first dynamic warrior flow. Shift forward, tuck the toes under, lift the knees. Let's actually walk the hands back to the feet for this transition. It's going to be a little easier. Wider legs, hip distance apart, make space. And slowly roll yourself up. You can use your hands on your legs to walk your hands up, or just simply roll. Coming towards the end of first trimester into second trimester, personally for me, doesn't feel good on my belly to reverse swan dive. So I'm always going to roll up slowly and mindfully, making sure to engage the core. And sometimes when I can't engage my core, I do use my hands a little bit more to come up. So let's go ahead and step our right foot forward. Or we can step to the top of the mat. Step your left foot back. Spin the back heel down. Open the hips, turn the toes straight out, bend the knee. So we've got our warrior two pose. Okay, warrior two. Now there's a tendency to sort of do this tilt here. Let's level off the hips. You can see that with the line of my pants. Level the hips, press into the pinky toe. We don't have to go super low, just enough to feel that strength and squeeze of the heels together. Open the arms. And standing poses are great for first trimester. We're gaining endurance. If you ever feel a little dizzy, come out of it, back off. Take a few deep breaths. Look over the front hands. Flip the front palm. Reverse warrior. From warrior two, reach up with that front hand, back hand down the back leg. Feel that side bend again. Side bend, length reaching. Then we've got triangle pose. We lift up back to warrior two. Straighten that front leg. You might walk the back foot in a little bit. Reach forward long. Take the hand to the knee, above the knee, to the shin. If you have a block, you can try the block. Triangle. Now, there's a tendency for this side bend. This is not a side bend. So roll that upper hip a little farther in as you rotate the shoulders open, creating straight line extension through both sides of the waist. triangle. Awesome, right? Then we rise back up, bend that front knee, lift back up, switch sides, and I'm gonna make it easy. Just pivot. Also, so I can face the camera. If you're teaching something like this, you can do different ways to transition from side to side. I like the pivot, especially if you're new to the practice too. We're not doing all sorts of crazy flowing. Although this is a dynamic flow, we'll add some dynamicism. We'll add some dynamics to it in a moment, but we'll mark these poses first. Warrior 2. Look beyond the front fingers, squeeze the heels together. I remember my doula and prenatal yoga teacher talking about holding each pose for a minute because that's how long contractions last, a minute. So try to hold it in a comfortable place for a minute. Now we're not doing quite a minute. We're not quite to second, third trimester, first trimester here. So we're just getting used to opening the hips. Let's flip the front palm, reverse warrior. Can you bend a little deeper? Open up the hips and squeeze the heels together. Activate the glutes. And then find that reach up. Good, and lift back up to warrior 2. Straighten the front leg. You might step in a little. Bump the hips back as you reach the hand forward. Triangle pose. Roll the shoulders and chest open. We want to try to keep the body more open, so this is even just a little bit of a twist, but not a wringing out twist. More of a core strengthening twist. Okay, we're going to use those 3 poses and do it over again in a flow. Bend the front knee, lift back up. I'm going to place my blocks away. If you have 2 blocks and you want to use them for triangle, just place them by both feet in the back, by the backs of the heels. So let's come back to the first side, warrior 2. We do a little flow. Flip the front palm, reverse warrior. As you come forward, straighten the leg, tap the shin or your block, triangle. Back to reverse warrior, inhale. Breath to movement, exhale, triangle. You pass through warrior 2 quick, reverse warrior, inhale. And we can do this as long as we want. Let's come back to center. Switch sides, shall we? Sure. Other side, second side. Flip the palm, reverse warrior. Straighten the front leg, triangle. You might not be as deep with the knee bends. That's all right. Again, we're backing off a bit. Can you connect breath to movement? And let's try one more. Good, and lift back up, warrior 2. Okay, we're gonna just simply take the hands on the hips, straighten the legs. Take a deep breath in. Reach those hands up. I'm transitioning here to child's pose. So we're gonna take the hands down. Actually, we're gonna skip child's pose in this. We're gonna take the hands down in this wide leg position and pause. If you have a couple blocks, we're going on to the next pose. Because we didn't go down to the floor, we're just gonna skip that in the series, but if there's a way that you saw the sequence and you wanna add it, please do. Child's pose, we can add that at a different point. But right now we're gonna stay dynamic. Turn one of your toes out to the side again and bend into the other leg. So this is a little side bend, side lunge, and we're gonna go back and forth. So lift up, you can pivot however the feet naturally go. I like blocks here are great. We can also do this with hands on the hips, or the second variation or last variation, arms out wide, shift side to side. So this is a little hip opening, airplane side lunge. If you're working more on the legs, just keep the hands down. Okay, there's our little dynamic side lunge. And then back to center. I'm gonna move back just a bit. We're heading into a wide down dog. So blocks or no blocks, I'm gonna get rid of them. Walk the hands forward. Walk the hands forward, reach the tailbone back. You can be a little bit more forward. Wide leg, down dog. Just release. Let go. And walk the hands back. Heel toe the feet a little closer together. Bend the knees. It's going to help. Hands on the knees or on your hips. Rise up. Now into a squat flow. We still have the feet pretty wide and grounded. I'm going to add the breath with this. So the tailbone goes back, belly draws in, reach forward, bend the knees, squat. Inhale as you stand. Exhale, squat. Only to your depth. Inhale, stand. Let's do 3 more. Can you press through the outer edges of the feet to keep the knees opening? Let's go from the side. So you're sitting back like you want to sit, but you can't quite sit down. One more time. And here, there we go. Heel to the feet a little closer, and wherever you are on your mat is fine. Heading towards a wide forward fold for release. Blocks or no blocks. Hip distance apart with the feet. Hinge forward, hang out. We don't want to lock the knees, so you can softly bend them, but if it feels good to straighten a little bit more into it, you can. Blocks are there if you feel like you're up kind of high or rounding the back. We can lift the floor a little higher with some blocks and add a little sway side to side. Okay, coming down from there, place the blocks away, hands on the ground, walk those feet back and take the knees down. Sit back on the heels and bring the legs around. Our final series in this little practice is a seated series. We've got feet together, knees open wide, butterfly or bound angle pose. Now it's actually helpful for prenatal or pregnancy, or really anyone if you've got tight hips, take the feet a little bit more forward. Rather than trying to hug them in really close, take them a bit more forward, sit up nice and tall, then bring your body weight forward and allow more of this passive stretch, less of trying to get down or pull down. Just a nice passive stretch, your elbows maybe on the legs to draw them down. Keep the neck in line with the spine. Now it might help to sit on something here if your hips are tight. Now we were on our hands and wrists quite a bit, so next up is a shoulder stretch. So from bound angle, lift up. I'm going to go to the side. Keep your feet the same way they were. A shoulder stretch. So instead of reverse plank or anything that's going to not be so great for us right now, us mamas to be, take your hands back, bend the elbows and squeeze them together. Lift the chest. I promise you, you will probably love this stretch in the future. I know having a baby the first time, it did a number on my shoulders. So anything that opens up like this, I love it, especially if it's gentle. Okay, and lift back up. Whew. Next is a twist. In this card, in this series, it says a thunderbolt twist. Thunderbolt twist is, let's come forward to the hands and knees or swing the legs around again. You can sit on a block. That's helpful. You can sit on a bolster, or if this is really uncomfortable, keep your legs in that bound ankle pose, or an easy seated pose works too. But it just helps to give you a little bit of lift if you have tight quads. So thunderbolt or hero pose. So sitting up here, give yourself some space, and we twist, a gentle twist. So reach back towards your back toes, one hand on the opposite. Actually, keep it on the same knee, not the opposite knee, that would be too deep. Let's keep the hand on the same knee and open to the side. Also, it helps that I was able to look at that picture and see the demonstration. Okay, switch directions. Hand on the same knee, other hand behind you. Open up. Very open twist, not too deep. And release. Okay, our final pose is a relaxation, and it can be Shavasana. And at this point, first trimester, we're still okay on our backs. You will know, at least I did, I will know when being on my back doesn't feel not good, it just feels awkward. So you will know at that point, and that's coming up soon. But for now, we can be on our backs. And it's recommended for this series that we do a legs up the wall. So go ahead and roll back. Actually, it's what I learned in prenatal a long time ago, classes. It's called the sexy slide. So instead of rolling back, because we don't want that crunch, right? We lean to the side a little bit and slide the arm back and down and then roll onto the back. And legs up the wall, if you have a wall, you will scooch up to it, waterflow the legs up. If you have a blanket, you can place it underneath your hips and underneath your head for legs up the wall. One of my favorite things to do for prenatal practice is, instead of just hands out wide, I really like hands on my belly. Hands on my belly, connecting with the little baby inside. It's our practice together. And I don't get, too inspirational into that. Instead, we just take some time to connect, to feel the breath and breathe. This legs up the wall position, really great for circulation. If you find yourself ever feeling swollen or on your feet too much, too often during the day, start to bring that blood flow round and down out of the feet. You can close the eyes and take a minute or so just to relax. You're welcome to stay here as long as you like. You can push pause or stop on the video and just stay. I mean, even like for 20 minutes would be amazing. But for the sake of this video, we'll start to move again, or I will. I'm going to bring my feet down, knees down, and roll to my left side. That's the preferred side for anyone who is pregnant. And there are reasons for that. So you're going to roll to your left side. It's not wrong if you choose your right. It's just preferred on the left. Because the heart that pumps blood to your uterus is on the left side, or the veins, or whatever it's called. Okay, let's press ourselves up gently and slowly. Sit up tall. This would be a great moment just for a quick meditation, a couple deep breaths. But that was our first trimester dynamic yoga flow as laid out by the WorkoutLabs Prenatal yoga cards. If you haven't gotten them yet, which I don't know that many have because they are brand new, I highly recommend them. Make sure to click the link in my description and use the code ASHESYOGA for 10% off. And it gives you 2 different flows for first trimester, dynamic and a slow flow. 2 for second, 2 for third. There's 12 in total for the sequences, and an entire booklet that just walks you through a lot of first, second, third trimester. And even if you never plan to be pregnant or you're past that stage, this is also great information for teachers, for yoga teachers who are teaching students or who may eventually come across students, you likely will, who are pregnant. The difference between first, second, and third trimester is quite a bit. It's good to know the difference and know the different variations. So go ahead and check them out. And thank you so much for joining in this practice. I will see you again for the next yoga flow that I share.